The case out of New Jersey for Christopher Gregor continued this week. The jury was only called to serve one day this week on Thursday, May 16th. In this video, I will briefly cover some of the hearings they had. The defense attorney called Christopher's mother and father, and the judge made a ruling what testimony would be permitted in front of the jurors. On day 8 of the trial, the defense attorney recalled Sergeant Coles. The defense attorney also called 2 patrol officers. Hello, my name is Deborah Lelli, and welcome to my channel. So the defense called Mr. Gregor's parents to try and elicit testimony regarding how Corey came into their lives and the observations that they had with Corey. Now, a lot of what was said during that hearing was not relevant, and a lot of it won't be permitted in. Also, a lot of the testimony that was said was also hearsay, which there was a lot of objections because of that. I'll play some of the clips from this testimony, but just keep in mind that this is outside of the jury. And so the jury is not actually going to hear this testimony in its entirety. When the judge issues his ruling, he does permit testimony to be brought in regarding the flight charge and also testimony regarding the post-offense charge. So we will be able to hear testimony about that once the jury does come back. One thing that I found kind of interesting before I play some of the clips from the testimony provided in the hearing was that neither of the grandparents had seen the treadmill video. And that was something that was asked because they were both talking about their son and how Mr. Gregor was loving towards Corey. And so that was a question that was asked, but neither of them had actually witnessed or had seen the treadmill video. But let me start off with some clips from the hearing on day 6. So David Gregor is Christopher's father, and he is asked why he did not watch the treadmill video, and here's his response. Now remember, again, this is not in front of the jury.
Did you ever see Christopher mistreat, abuse, or hit Corey?
Never.
Have you watched the treadmill video?
No,
Okay, why not?
because I don't want to see. I don't want that to be my remembrance of Corey, that he was mistreated in that single instance on the treadmill.
The defense attorney continues questioning Mr. Gregor, Christopher's father, to try and establish a timeline and events of when he was with Corey prior to Corey's death. He's also going to try and use David's testimony to help the charge of flight regarding when Christopher leaves the hospital. His grandfather did mention that he did see some bruising on Corey, and I'll just play you that part on that so you can hear the testimony he had.
We did.
Okay, where did you see the bruising?
I saw a bruise on his forehead.
Okay, and did you or your wife speak to Corey about the bruise?
We did.
Okay, was it you that spoke to him or your wife?
Both.
Okay, what if anything did you
I
say to Corey?
what happened? And Corey said, I fell on the treadmill.
All right, so then Caroline Gregor testifies, and similar, she's asked pretty much the same question. She also talks about the treadmill video. She's asked about the days leading up to Corey's death and her observations of Corey.
What did you observe?
He had a bruise on his forehead.
Did you ask him about it?
Yes.
What did you say?
Where did the bruise come from, Corey?
And what happened?
And he told me he fell on the treadmill.
Now, you were with him the whole day on March 22nd? From
It-
what time to what time?
Approximately 4 o'clock till about 7:30.
Okay. And during that time from 4 o'clock to 7:30, what was Corey's demeanor?
He was fine. He was energetic. He actually got me scared at one of the houses because it was a little close to a main road. And we were outside and he was excited and running around. And I was like worried because there were cars and trying to keep him contained while Dave and Chris looked at the house. He was just his normal, fun self.
Okay. What was Christopher's demeanor?
He was fine. He was, looking at the house. He really wanted to find a house for him and Corey.
So I'm not going to play too much of those clips because I do want to wait for that testimony to be in front of the jury. So I am going to move on to day number 8, which was on Thursday, May 16th. And let's get right to that. So Sergeant Coles was recalled by the defense as their witness. And basically the reason why Sergeant Coles was recalled was to talk about the flight charge. And the defense asked questions regarding the GPS tracking and whether it appeared that Christopher was returning back.
When you looked at it, did you make any observations as to the location of the cell phone between the 3rd and the 4th?
I did.
Okay, and what was that?
Sure. So the cell phone can be seen turning around at approximately 2:45. You can see it getting onto the off ramp. I believe it was Highway 371 and Route 30 in Arkansas. You see it get on the off ramp, go around, and start going northeast from that point. And to put Arkansas into perspective, it's about 4 hours to go from the southwest corner of Arkansas to the northeast corner where the phone went. So, or say from Memphis, Tennessee, which is the southwest corner of Tennessee, to Arcana, Texas, which is the the northeast corner of Texas, where it hits the Arkansas border, is approximately 4 hours. So the device was 45 minutes approximately from the Texas border. It can be seen going back towards Memphis at that point. It arrived in Memphis, Tennessee at approximately 5:50 p.m. The phone can continue to be tracked until it gets to about Nashville area around 9 p.m. It looks like Mr. Gregor gets off in Nashville for maybe 15, 20 minutes. As the device continues to move, he just gets off the main highway, at which point he gets back on the main highway and then stops at approximately, I believe it was 9:50 p.m. He stops on the eastern side of Nashville past the airport for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. From that point, he then drives from that section to Quality Inn Motel in, I think it was Gordonsville, Tennessee, and stops there at around 11:45 at night.
And after that, do you see it again?
Sure. And then on the 4th, it picks up. He leaves the motel or Quality Inn Hotel at approximately 9:45 a.m. and arrives at the airport in Alcoa, Tennessee at approximately 11:15.
So he effectively does a U-turn in Texarkana, Arkansas, and heads back towards the northeast.
He does.
However, on redirect, the state asked the sergeant about the times that Mr. Gregor was actually leaving from the hospital and the period of time that he actually left.
2021, that phone and that defendant were traveling away from Southern Ocean Medical Center.
That's correct.
And so about 24 hours, that phone is going away
That's
from
correct.
Southern Ocean Medical Center. Okay. And in that period of time, that defendant and his phone never made any attempts to turn around and come back to Southern Ocean Medical Center in this area, right?
It did not.
And during that entire time, that phone was in airplane mode, correct?
Briefly, maybe around like 5:20, it came out of airplane mode, but from like 6:20-ish and on, it was in airplane mode until it was taken out.
And isn't it true that 25 minutes prior to the defendant turning around to come back to New Jersey, he's on the phone with his father?
He was.
And he actually turned around to come back while he was on the phone with his father.
That's correct.
Never before that.
Correct.
Now, at that point, he's 45 minutes from the Texarkana border in Texas, right?
Yes.
And then when he turns around, he makes a stop off in the Nashville area that night because he's in the area.
Briefly to stop for dinner, yes. Or gas, or I'm not sure what he stopped for, but he stopped on the eastern side of Nashville.
And based upon your understanding of basic geography, from the point that he was in Arkansas, he could have been in Mexico by Easter, correct?
Objection. It's speculation. He could have been in Uruguay.
That's sustained unless you can lay some foundation for that.
I have no other questions.
The next defense witness is Patrol Dugan, and he is a patrol officer who was actually called to do a welfare check on Corey. Now, at the time of the call, he was barely doing training, so he did report with another officer who will also testify after him. However, when he did do the welfare check, he does testify that he did notice the bruising. However, when he left the house, he believed that the child was not in imminent harm. I'm going to play some of his clips for you to watch, but when the state does the redirect, obviously the state's going to ask questions regarding whether he interviewed Corey in the presence of his father and whether he had any actual personal knowledge about the bruising. Defense and the state go back and forth asking this witness questions. So I will play a couple clips from him. So let's take a look.
Mr. Gucci's got to rephrase the question.
Besides what you've already testified to, you observed on Corey, did you observe anything suspicious?
Not between Mr. Gregor and Corey. They seem to have a good relationship between each other. And that was that. We spoke with both of them, and that was really it.
Okay, and then you left?
Yeah.
Right. No further questions.
And Brianna had made a complaint regarding bruises on her son.
Yes.
And based upon your conversation with Brianna, you went to 900 Barnegat Boulevard, correct?
Yes.
And when you went to the apartment, you were there to conduct a child welfare check.
Yes.
And the purpose of a child welfare check is to make sure that a child isn't in immediate danger, correct?
Yes.
And in essence, the purpose is to lay eyes on that child to make sure that they're not in imminent harm, correct?
Yes.
And you got to the apartment and you met with Christopher Gregor, right?
Yes.
And you asked to see Corey.
Yes.
And you saw Corey and you saw that he had a bruise on his legs, correct?
Yes.
And you saw that Corey had bruises on his arms.
Yes.
You saw that Corey had a bruise on his hip.
Yes.
You saw that Corey had a bruise on his chest.
Yes.
You also saw that Corey had a laceration above his eyebrow, right?
Yes.
And you spoke to Christopher Gregor at the apartment.
Yes.
And you also spoke to Corey, right?
Yes.
And when you spoke to Corey, you spoke to him in the presence of his father, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't separate Corey from his father when you talked to the defendant, correct?
No.
And based upon your immediate observations, Corey did not appear to be in distress at that moment, except for your observations of the bruises, correct?
Correct.
And you had no idea when you were at that apartment that there had been this video with the defendant interacting with his son on a treadmill, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea how Corey actually got those bruises, correct?
Corey told me that,
Without saying what Corey said, it was just right. You had no idea. You have no personal knowledge as to how Corey got those bruises, correct?
You went there, you met with Corey, and you met with his father, am I right?
yes,
And what is a welfare check?
just to make sure that the child, or if any welfare check, to make sure that that person's not in immediate danger, self-harm, anything like that, just make sure that they're okay.
Now, Ms. Lento asked you if you were aware of a treadmill video, am I correct?
Correct.
But you were aware of a treadmill when you spoke to them, weren't you?
After he told me about it, correct.
After you met with Corey and his father, and you did their welfare check,
Mm,
did you, as an officer, make a decision?
yes,
And the decision you made during the welfare check was that there was nothing suspicious, as you just testified, right?
yes,
And that there was actually a good relationship between the father, Christopher, and his son, right?
yes.
Okay, and you took no further action, am I right?
I mean, we called Child Protective Services.
But you had to because it was a welfare check of a child.
Correct, yeah, when we
Okay.
saw the bruises, we wanted to obviously make sure that
So
everything is okay.
you made you think to yourself, as you were sitting there talking to the two of them, that they had a good relationship.
He said that he, the child rides his bike. They play football together. Trollman Roman said that he's observed them playing football.
Hold on. He may be called. Roman statements are hearsay right now.
Gotcha. But yeah, just nothing seemed suspicious while we were on scene there.
In your report, I believe that you used the words appeared to have a good relationship, correct?
Correct.
And you used the word appeared to have a good relationship because you didn't know the extent of the relationship between Corey and his father, correct?
Correct.
And you hadn't been in that apartment for more than what, a few minutes when you used the term appeared to have a relationship?
Correct.
And you didn't know what would have been happening in the apartment when you weren't there, correct?
Correct.
And you wouldn't have known what would have been happening in the apartment behind closed doors when you were not at the apartment, correct?
Correct.
If you thought that there was a child that was in danger, that you were directly sent there to look at, would you have taken further action?
Yes.
Would you have written in your report if you thought that there was something amiss or something happening to a child? Would you have put in your report, nothing suspicious, seems to have a good relationship with each other? Would you have written that if you thought there was
Yes.
something wrong?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last witness that was called was Patrol Angel Roman, and this was the field training officer that was actually training the prior witness. This officer would have been with the prior officer on the same day as the welfare check. This officer also testifies to the observations that he made. However, he also witnessed Christopher Gregor and Corey playing football a couple of days or weeks before the incident, which was something that I wasn't expecting. And I'm not sure if that was something that the state was expecting either. That's definitely something that came out during his testimony.
During this welfare check, did you have an opportunity to speak to Christopher Gregor and his son Corey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during that welfare check, did you see any bruising? Did you see any bruising to Corey?
Yes.
Okay, and describe for us where you saw the bruising.
Saw the bruising on his chest, his hip, legs, arms, and I believe there was an abrasion above his eyebrow.
Now, after you spoke with Corey and Christopher Gregor, did you do anything else with respect to that welfare check?
Yes, we contacted DCPMP. I don't.
As per protocol?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did you inform them, did you give them any information?
Yes, which wasn't the first time.
Okay, so had you seen Christopher and Corey ever prior to that day in that area?
In Barnegat Township?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and where had you seen them?
Barnegat High School football field.
Okay, and what did you see them doing on that Barnegat football field?
The Gregor was throwing passes to his son on the field in the end zone area.
No further questions. Thank you. There's nothing.
Where did you see the defendant and Corey throwing passes?
At the high school football field.
Okay, and when you saw this, where were you located?
In my patrol vehicle.
Okay, and do you remember the time that you saw this happen?
I don't recall exactly the time frame, but possibly a couple weeks to a month prior.
Before Corey passed?
Prior to my incident of doing the welfare check.
Okay, so you saw this a few weeks prior to that, and you were in your patrol car when you were able to see this?
Yes.
And you didn't stop at that point, correct?
No.
Okay. And from your vantage point, you didn't see Corey getting hurt, correct?
I think I saw him dive for a pass, but not specifically appearing hurt after diving for that pass.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. No further questions.
So that is all the testimony for this week. The trial is not going to continue actual testimony until Wednesday, the 22nd, and then again on Friday, the 24th. So next week, there's going to be 2 days of testimony The defense attorney does anticipate that there is going to be some lengthy testimony coming up. However, at this point, we do have to wait until next week for the court to actually resume. One of the other things that was addressed in trial today was whether Christopher Gregor would actually take the stand or not. He was read some advisements, and so he does have until next week to think about whether he will be taking the stand or not. That's all the updates that I have for now. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. I will see you next time.